To the I Was Alive series, ladies and gentlemen. You made it. Very first video released. Good stuff. I'm so excited to start my YouTube channel. I've been taking way too long to figure out how I was going to do this, and now here I am. Pulling the trigger. Really excited. You know, normal videos, they would just talk through the entire thing about how they draw and the different styles and blah, 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 blah. But for me, since this series is about legacy work, it was about paying homage to what we do in our lifetime, I'm going to use this series to explain my legacy, to show you how I became the man I am today. It all started in 1989. Did it? I mean, that's the year that I was born. Not really. Started much earlier than that. It probably started closer around the 1980s when my mother and my father met. My father is from Brooklyn, New York, and my mother is originally from Puerto Rico. My mom was born in Boston, but I gotta ask her. Either way, my family's from Penuelas. What's up, baby? I also have family in Guanica. What's up, Ponce? Let's go. My mom and my dad, they met in Jamaica Plain. That's pretty much the hot spot of Puerto Rican territory in the mid or early 1980s. My father and my mother lived in the same apartment. My mother had something like 5 brothers. They were well known around the Jamaica Plain area. My mom was the youngest. She was very much a stay-at-home body because my grandmother was traditional. She thought, you know, this is the true Cinderella story. You got to stay in the house and you got to take care of the house. That all changed when she met my father, who was much older. My father is very much an explorer. That's where I get a lot of my exploration from, my urban exploration, I would say. I'm not much of a international explorer, but I do enjoy exploring urban territories. My father being much older, my mother gravitated towards him because she didn't know anything about exploring or just being an urban girl. So she met my father. They lived in the same apartment and they instantly hit it off. They were crushing each other. I remember my father used to write poems for my mother and leave it in flower pots for her to find. It was a very cute romantic story. I mean, my father's a very loving man. He wasn't there to use my mother. He was there to be a friend with her. My uncles on my mother's side, they weren't really about it. You know, they didn't want to see their younger sister messing with this older Puerto Rican guy. But hey, you know what you gonna do? A woman wants to do what she wants to do. So the cute story is they ran away. My mom and my dad, it's like they weren't allowed to be together because my grandmother on my mother's side wasn't about it either. She was like, you're not about to take my little Cinderella away. No, no, no. And my dad was like, yes, yes, yes. So then one evening, my mom pretty much packed a suitcase full of shit. She lived on the 3rd floor. My father lived on the 2nd floor. And in the middle of the night, she and my father, they're looking out the window. And she throws her freaking luggage out the window thinking my dad was this freaking strong man. Probably, my dad is a strong man, but I bet you she packed this suitcase to the max. My dad could not catch the suitcase. The suitcase just slipped by his hands and slammed to the ground, creating a humongous racket. They still managed to flee Jamaica Plain, flee Boston, Massachusetts, and they went to Puerto Rico, where they had my older brother in 1988. They had my older brother, Jose Guadarrama. They had him in Yauco, Puerto Rico. And then 1 year later, almost like Irish twins, I was born in 1989 in Ponce, Puerto Rico, not too far from Yauco. We lived in the jungle. A lot of our life was pretty much picking mangoes from the trees. I loved it. I loved it so much. It was such an experience. And then at a certain point, they decided, you know what, we made this family. We started this family. Let's move back to let's move back to the Boston area, and just, you know, the family's gonna have to take us in now because we got a family. They can't hate on us. And that's exactly what happened. We came back to Boston, and we were accepted with open arms, especially having 2 boys born from this beautiful runaway couple. And my dad was a chef. My mom didn't have a job, but my dad supported my mother the entire way through college. I remember sitting in a lot of her college classes with my older brother. We would be drawing. I'm not gonna lie, my brother was the first illustrator in the family. I looked up to him, and I immediately gravitated towards illustration because I would see him illustrate. He doesn't do so much of it now, even though he's an incredible artist. I ended up taking that torch and continuing and pursuing the illustration dream. I was drawing since I was a kid, man. I used to draw from cereal boxes. I used to draw from my lunch boxes. I used to draw from my bed sheets. I mean, at the time, we had Ren and Stimpy, we had Angry Beavers, we had Sega Genesis, or anything that was Sega Genesis. I would draw anything, man. I remember drawing the Flintstones. I remember any cartoon I could see, I would draw. My father and my mother, they supported it. They kept us in a little bit of a bubble, which was a little, being an adult now, that bubble is kind of taking its toll on me, but I'm doing my best to grow as a human. What an experience that was, being young in the 90s. My father would work 72 hours in just 3 days. This guy was grinding all the time. He was cooking. At the time, there was a place called Bennigan's in downtown Boston. A lot of my old folks may know about Bennigan's. It was an Irish restaurant, really good. I remember being able to just come and see my dad, and they would serve us free food. That was such an awesome thing, man. My mom eventually, she graduated college, Suffolk University, right there in downtown. We were very much urban kids, urban explorers. Thanks to my father and my mother, even though we were kind of in a bubble, they still took us on the train. They still took us out and, you know, had us exposed to certain things. They didn't really like us in the neighborhood because, you know, Puerto Ricans in the neighborhood, we tend to end up in bad situations, you know. The community's always pushing us into drugs or violence or gang related shit. So, you know, my parents, especially since my father was somewhat exposed to that at a young age, he didn't want that for us. So he would do everything he could to keep us out of that realm. And I love him so much for being such a strong father and keeping us out of trouble, because not one of my brothers are in trouble now. We're all grown men, and we do our best to stay out of trouble. We try to stay busy and working just like our parents did. That's the beginning of the legacy. That's where it all started. It started in Jamaica Plain, and we moved to Puerto Rico, and then we moved back to Jamaica Plain. Stay tuned for more of the life of John ALIVIXI, Michael John Guadarrama, whatever you want to call me. A lot of people call me Mikey G. You call me Mikey, you call me Dunce. I got like 100 names. Forgive me for that. I just been exploring for such a long time that I got so many titles at this point. But catch another episode of ALIVIXI's I Was Alive series. Ciao.